it's another side that like wants to take more, and wants to go that one more round, because like going that one more round when you don't think you can, that's what makes all the difference in your life. You know what I mean?
Welcome, everyone, to one more round of the Rocky Series podcast. I am 99% sure we are going to finish Rocky 3 today. Okay? I'm 99% sure. Unlike my Rambo podcast, we are not going to drag out this season unnecessarily. We are dragging out our Rambo podcast unnecessarily because we don't want it. We don't want it to end. But not that we want Rocky to end, but we still got 3 more films to do. So this is we got a lot of road ahead of us. Katie, how are you doing? And then Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, despite it being very cold, but I leave for sunny Mexico in a couple of days, so I'm escaping the cold. Mm-hmm. I'll be on a beach next week.
But you're not missing any recordings because of that vacation?
Correct. It just worked out that it worked out. Nope.
Perfect. All right, Kyle, how you doing? You going to Mexico?
No, I'm a little depressed with how much vacation time Katie gets. I thought Americans were like overworked and never went on vacation.
I always
doesn't seem to be true at all.
I never take a long vacation. It's like a couple of days. Like I'll be there for like 4 days, like
stretch it out. That makes sense, actually. So you can go to like Cancun or Cabo or somewhere?
Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, okay.
The West Coast. So yeah, it's like a quick trip, 3 nights, literally, in and out.
Nice. Get out of the cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how much you can do when you don't have kids. And
yep.
I know.
I can get dog sitters.
Food and shelter and clothing and stuff. I don't get it.
Man, I hate kids. Okay. I love my family. How
are you, Ryan?
I'm doing good. I'm still in the Middle East right now. My time here is coming to an end. I think we have 2 more recordings while I'm here, and then the 3rd recording from here. So while we're doing Rocky 4, the early parts of Rocky 4, Season 4, I'll be back in Canada. I can't wait to see my family. Can't wait to get out of the Middle East. Hopefully I get out of here alive. It's all good. All right. That being said, Katie, you got some emails, I think.
Yes, we have one from Andreas. Hello, Ryan, Katie, and Kyle. I really enjoyed listening to your latest episode. You guys are always entertaining and great at pointing out details that keep these movies alive for all of us. Listening to your comments about the things that could be considered gay in the montage was both interesting and hilarious. It brought more to a discussion I've had with American friends where we've realized Americans are shocked by sex and nudity, and Europeans, at least us Scandinavians, are shocked by violence. Yes, it's a problem. Americans seem to accept violence in art and entertainment more than they do sex and vice versa. I don't know how it applies to Canadians, somewhere in between, perhaps.
Maybe a little bit in between, but I'd say it leans more towards accepting violence rather than nudity. I know, for example, the movie ratings in Canada are different. It's much more difficult to get a restricted rating in Canada. Mm-hmm. Even with nudity, like you can have a movie rated 14 and have minor nudity in it. In general, though, I think it does stem from like Victorian culture from, the old British Empire or whatever that kind of shames sex to a degree.
America is probably far more religious than Scandinavia. And I think that's where the more secular a society, the less issue there is with sexuality and nudity, and it's blatant violence should clearly be wrong. And somehow, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but yes, good point, Andreas.
Yeah, it is weird that you could see someone get brutally murdered, but then it's like seeing a penis or some boobs or something is like horrific. Mm-hmm. I don't get that.
Same. He says, I agree with Katie that it's mostly a cultural thing. Here in Sweden, it's common to take a sauna steam together and then go for a cold dip in the ocean, a lake, or a snowbank if you're nowhere near the ocean. You're naked the entire time and people are just hanging out, drinking a beer or water together with strangers. There's nothing gay about it. Gay, straight, or other participants partake in these events and nudity is never an issue. The cold winds, snow, and or seawater can be an issue for beginners, but not the rest. Yeah, I went to Iceland a couple years ago, like the lagoons and stuff like that. It's cool. And then there's like an ice bath there's like a whole 7-step thing that you do, and it's supposed to be cleansing. And anyway, it was fantastic. I highly recommend Iceland, everyone, if you've not been.
Sure, I'll add that to my list.
He says, I wanted to stand up for Antonio Tarver, though. I thought he did a great job. He seemed less cartoonish than the other opponents that we love. And since Rocky Balboa is a more grounded film than, say, movies 3 through 5, I thought his performance fit. Also, did he need to be an actor? Mr. T wasn't an actor before Stallone discovered him. Dolph Lundgren wasn't either, or Tommy Morrison. Come to think of it, the only opponent who was a real actor was Carl Weathers. No, I'm only taking the piss. Please don't think I'm upset about the Tarver comment. I think your podcast is great. It's what I listen to when I go for walks or load the dishwasher, etc., and it renews my love for the franchise. So thanks for that. Love and cheers, Andreas.
That's a great email. Thank you, Andreas. And a couple of things. I didn't get a chance to comment on the sex and violence. I mean, yes, cultural, how your upbringing, things like that. Obviously, at this point, we're all adults, so I don't care. Like, I'm an adult now, so I watch TV shows that have both, from name the TV show, from Game of Thrones to whatever. If it's part of the plot, it is what it is. Like, I don't watch pornography just for entertainment, but if I'm watching a TV or movie and it happens to have whatever and it's part of the plot, then so be it. I don't really care. There's stuff that's violent that I don't enjoy. That's just for the sake of violence. Some horror movies I don't watch because it's just too much. It's gratuitous violence. I don't like watch. They call it. Forget what it's called. Like a movie like Hostel, for example. Like it's just people being tortured. For me, I don't really enjoy that. I mean, there's people that have that audience, and there's people that have an audience for pornography. So I'm not condoning it or condemning those people or condoning it. I'm just saying it's not for me. So then as a parent, you have to decide for yourself, what is it for your kids you want to have them watch? Again, I showed my 12-year-old son Gladiator. Okay, it's got some violence. It's actually not that bad. And they also watched the Rambo films up to part 3. Like I haven't shown them part 4 and 5 yet because they're really violent. I'm going to wait till a little bit older. First 3 are kind of cartoonish violence. So it's all kind of relative. It's up to you as a parent to decide what you want to show your kids and what age. Okay, and then now about the Tarver thing. I agree with what Andreas is saying, but the reason why I don't like Tarver at the end of the day, he's right about the actor boxer thing. That's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. The problem is because Mr. T was a new actor, Dolph was a new actor, yes, and same with Tommy, obviously Tommy Morrison. But the idea that I was saying was all 3 of those guys looked like real athletes. So the irony was, even though Tarver was a real boxer, and so was Tommy. That's what I want. I want someone who looks like in a physical presence against Rocky. The problem with Rocky Balboa, and it's nothing against Tarver, I'm not body shaming him, but in the realm of the movie characters, I should say, you have to have someone who's kind of jacked and ripped a little bit. That's who Rocky faces. Look at the Creed films. All Creed's opponents, man, were these jacked guys. And the real boxers that they had in those films too, like the Danny Wheelers and all these other real boxers, they were jack guys, except for the one guy. Ironically, the one boxer who was a real boxer, he was kind of flimsy. But again, I think for the Rocky movies, that's where Tarver fell short. He was an okay actor. Like he did an okay job for his small role. He didn't have a lot of speaking lines. He was fine. It just felt off. I don't know why. And I'm not the only one who thinks that way. It felt off. So I feel bad for saying that because I don't want to body shame him, but it did feel off compared to all the other Rocky opponents.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Kyle might be frozen. I think he's frozen.
Oh, all right. He's frozen. Great. All right. So Kyle, we don't have to deal with him anymore. Perfect.
He was, but you said it. Back. Oh, okay.
Good. Oh, he's okay.
Well, I was going to say that I wasn't against Tarver, but I just found his character wasn't that good. Like he wasn't much of a villain. He wasn't the villain at all. There wasn't really a villain in Rocky Balboa. And I guess
villain was the time.
Details.
The villain was that Rocky was way out of his prime. Blah blah blah. End of his. He shouldn't even be in the ring. It was him fighting that beast. The villain was the beast in the basement. We'll get to that stuff.
But Mason Dixon was basically a prop, and from that respect, he was fine. Although I do agree with your criticism that there's a certain expectation we have as viewers of the franchise that Rocky's opponents are almost absurdly bigger and better than he is type of thing. And he has to overcome that. And even though Rocky was old in that film, he seemed like he was jacked too. So it was a little weird.
He was big.
I personally wasn't bothered by it. Like it didn't, yeah.
I want a hot bod to look at. No, I'm being silly on purpose, but really though.
How dare you?
Yes.
And I want to comment for Ivan Drago. You didn't need an actor for that role because you didn't say anything.
But he was good. I gotta say, the nonverbal acting, I think sometimes can be difficult. My friend Kim doesn't like Dolph Lundgren because she thinks he's Ivan Drago. She's like, he's like a robot. I'm like, yeah, he was. That's the role.
Well, Kim, movies are pretend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now you got another email, I believe.
From Michael of the Screen Nerds podcast. Hey, y'all. Happy New Year to you, Ryan, Kyle, and Katie. Hope you have a wonderful 2024 and continued success for the podcast. There's
Wait, slow down. Continued success. Okay. Wow. I didn't know we had any. We have people listening and watching us. That's very kind of you, Michael. Okay, continue.
There is one question that I wanted to ask about this training montage. Why do you think we don't see Clubber Lang's part of the training for this second fight? We see Rocky and yes, yeah, it is a good question. He says we see Rocky and Clubber training interspersed before the first fight. But in the second training montage, we only see Rocky's training. Just curious about what you think about this. Keep up the great work, Michael.
The first film, we didn't really see Apollo's training because he didn't take it seriously. We're almost led to believe he almost didn't train for that first fight because we never see him train. Second fight, we see him train. Third movie, we see Clubber train at the beginning. So I think what it is, I think Clubber probably just did more of the same. I think you could just go in the back of your mind that it was focused on the Rocky Apollo, that we did a whole episode on about their friendship, their blooming companionship, their bromance, that's the word, their bromance together. So I think it just stuck to that, Rocky getting out of his funk. It was just focused on Rocky, because even the Rocky 2 montage, it was just Rocky. We saw Apollo train earlier in the film, but not during the montage. So I guess that montage part is a little bit of a special moment, though. And then in Rocky 4, we do see it interspersed with the because that was supposed to be man versus nature, nature versus machine. That was the whole idea of that. So I guess it's just different in every film. So I think at the end of the day, for Rocky 3, we saw Clubber train. We know how he trains, and I think just for that montage, I think the focus was just Apollo and Rocky's bromance.
Like, of course, with the first fight, you have to show them both train because you have to show that one's serious and one isn't. And then with Rocky 4, you have to show them both train because it shows their differences in training, and it shows Rocky's approach to training in this harsh environment. So you have to contrast those things. For the second fight in Rocky 3, it wouldn't provide any value showing Clubber train. It's okay to just assume that he trained hard. The training with Rocky in the second fight, it was so difficult. Like, he had to get his head in the right place. And so that's what you had to focus on. You had to focus on Rocky getting over his demon of losing that fight, and showing Clubber Lang train would be a distraction rather than adding actual value. Had Rocky trained hard from the beginning and it wasn't an issue, it'd be okay, I guess, to show Clubber train, but you had enough going on there. It would be weird to have him show him train there. So I thought that was a good decision by the filmmakers.
Okay, awesome question. Thank you, Michael. Check out his podcast, Everyone's Screen Nerds podcast. And last little thing here, we got a YouTube comment, but it kind of goes in with what we've already alluded to. But this is from Simon, our film director, fan of the show. He says here regarding the masculine energy, he goes, all that masculine energy and hugging reminded me of football or soccer, you'd call it for us North Americans. And rugby, there's a lot of hugging and kissing, but famously very few gay players. And lots of locker room wrestling, often shared showers, and general pranking. Many sports guys I know joke about teabagging other guys and stuff like that after matches.
Oh my
Does everyone know what teabagging is?
Yes, it's when you...
No, we're not going to explain what teabagging is. My mom listens to the show.
I can go for a cup of tea right now and just dipping the tea bag into the cup.
If you want to know what teabagging is, you can Google at your own risk. He goes on here to say, also shows like Jackass are super popular, just like nude wrestling in ancient times were very popular. Now with MMA and films like Fight Club, there is something primal, compelling about fit dudes being healthily rambunctious. It's more about masculine energy than sexuality, in my opinion. Okay, so we got a lot of great comments about that. It's funny. I guess a lot of these people saw our live broadcast. I cut out a lot of the gay talk for the
You did. I noticed that.
Okay. So if you want to hear the unedited versions, you can ask me for the link. We do have a...
Isn't it on Patreon?
So
plug your
both.
Patreon. Yeah.
You can go to the Patreon. Again, I can't stress enough, if you're watching this live on Instagram or on Patreon or on the YouTube channel, which I never plug, that's where you'll get that live unedited talk. But I do pare things down for the actual iTunes feed just to make it a little bit more PG. Some of our talk gets a little bit silly and crazy, but because that's the stuff my mom listens to. I edit for my mom.
Oh
Bless my mom's heart. I do. Well, because she listens to every episode and she keeps me honest, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to the live stuff. Mom has a sway overall. Let's get into the movie.
Well, I want to make a comment just in general.
Please.
I think a lot of our gay stuff was really tongue-in-cheek.
Of course it was.
We don't really think that they're gay. And I do think it is interesting in the male psyche. And I just say this in our culture. I can't speak to other cultures. We generally have a fairly homophobic culture, and then men are generally discouraged from having, I'm going to say intimate physical contact. I don't mean sex, but I mean like hugging,
Right.
stuff like that. Sports is this like odd exception where that's okay, because like the context of sports in general is such that you touch guys anyways during sports. It's more intimate itself, especially contact sports. Those barriers come down and you are allowed to touch. It's weird, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And I just personally find it an odd part of our culture.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with it. I don't want to be teabagged, but I played sports and I'm in the Navy. Let me just say, I can share stories. Well, I
Yeah,
have to share
Ryan,
them all
I have a hard
offline.
time believing you haven't had any homosexual experiences if you're in the Navy.
Well, I will just say for the record, everything has been above board and wonderful and great, and there's absolutely nothing to share and say. Okay,
Mhm.
for the record.
Okay. So I'm just going to step out for a sec, but you guys just start without me, okay?
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stu Nahan along with Bill Baldwin, and we welcome you to Madison Square Garden, a most exciting background for the anxiously awaited rematch between the former champion Rocky Balboa and the reigning heavyweight champion Clubber Lang. We now switch to our remote cameras inside the dressing rooms.
Madison Square Garden. I think I would have forgotten that. I don't know why. I think I'm always so used to everything being in Philly, but this is actually in New York City they're fighting, which isn't that far from Philly.
Correct. Wasn't there another one in Madison Square Garden?
Well, there was fights in the pre-show, the montage at the beginning of Rocky 3 when he had all these other fights. He did fight in Madison Square Garden, but I don't know if there was any fights between Apollo. I think the Apollo and Rocky fights are both at Philly. Weren't they both in the Spectrum?
Yeah, they're both in the Spectrum.
Okay. And then in 4, it's Vegas, right? One of them's from Vegas. Yeah. Okay.
Well, remind me, the first fight against Clubber and Rocky, I think that was in Philly too, was it not?
Well, yeah, we had an argument about this. I initially thought it was New York, but then I think we did determine it was in Philly.
Because the whole idea of it being, because the ring, remember the ring had the stallion symbol inside the ring to make it his home turf, where this won't have. I don't think this ring has that, for example.
Yeah, it'd be interesting why they did it here and not say in Chicago, where Clubber's from.
Neutral ground.
True.
Yeah, New York is just like that's where a lot of fights happen because it's the big city.
Sure.
So
yeah, Madison Square Garden. Of course, now we got signs in there. This audience is here for the film. We got Go Rocky signs.
You do see a Clubber sign later on. So like
yeah, we do. Yeah, I think there's a Clubber sign. I love it. That's great.
But
yeah,
honestly, this preamble to this fight is full of lots of little nuggets. My goal is to make it so this is a 2-episode thing.
Oh wow!
Do you guys see the Adidas sign? I have a feeling that is not for the Rocky. It's just an advertisement that happened to be in Madison Square Garden at the time of filming.
Yeah, because Nike seems to be the sponsor of this film. I want to also just let you know that I want to be counting the people in Clubber's entourage because it is bizarre. From a guy who fights alone and trains alone, he's going to have the biggest freaking entourage you'll ever see.
Very reminiscent. Creed 3 is Rocky 3 in that Jonathan Majors was sort of the same way in that once he became champ, same with Clubber, now everybody's like a hanger-on.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I think he's just got more people around him. He almost has to as the champion. He can't take all the phone calls. He has to have management.
Yeah, but why are they there at ringside pretending to help with this? Like his corner staff is gigantic. You'll see when we get there.
It is. It's like the hype men of rappers. It's like the entourage is far greater than it needs to be just because you're like, oh yeah, I guess you're my friend or whatever.
Would you care to comment on how you plan to fight Balboa? What's your strategy?
Don't need any. Balboa's so predictable and stupid. The man comes straight ahead. He's tailor-made for me, and he's gonna get hurt.
So I love it because Sly writes this dialogue. So I kind of love how there's that behind the scenes stuff, like Sly's writing that dialogue for Clubber to say about him. He's talking about Rocky's fighting style is truly that. He's pretty much that is how Rocky kind of fights. And that's the idea is because now Apollo has trained him differently. Apollo's trained him how to dance, how to move, how to shuck and jive. He thinks Rocky's going to come in again the same way he did before or has before, with just coming straight on, taking the punches to the head, which is odd because you would think Clubber and his team would have to recognize that because Apollo's training him, he might have a different style now than the old style. It's interesting that that discussion has never come across his training time. Like, hey, just so you know, Clubber, we have to consider Apollo's training him a little bit how he fights. We may have to look at his tapes as well.
Yeah, but Clubber has so little respect for Apollo Creed, apparently, that I think he's like, I don't care if he fights like Apollo Creed, I'll knock him out too. I think he's a victim of his own arrogance where
he must be.
He just thinks he could beat anyone. And it's funny because so much has changed. In the first fight, they're trying to interview him and he wants nothing of it. This time, he's calm in his dressing room. He seems to be willing to take the questions, and he's cocky. He's arrogant. He's like, I'm going to knock this guy out just like last time. I don't need a strategy. I don't care. Even though we didn't see him train, we didn't see a lackluster training regime. Even if he physically trained hard, strategically, he did not prepare for this fight with all the contingencies. Like, he might come straight ahead like last time. If he doesn't, what are we going to do? And they haven't had that discussion at all.
Maybe Clubber should have said, my strategy this time, I'm going to kill Paulie on his entrance to the ring.
Yeah.
That's good. Turn them over. Good. Does that look okay? Huh?
No, I don't hate Balboa.
So, yeah, much more relaxed atmosphere in the room with Rocky and Apollo, and Rocky's giving Agent a little love taps with his taped hands, and I like that. It was a nice little, cute little moment, and Rocky kind of gives Agent a nice little knock on her chin with his freshly taped hands by Apollo.
Cute.
And it shows he's comfortable. He's not real nervous and stressed like his last fight. The last fight was a total disaster. He probably is nervous, like has a healthy fear, as we'll learn in Rocky 5. But I don't think he's scared of Clubber Lang anymore. He feels like, you know, like when you go into an exam or something like that and you've studied really hard for it and you feel prepared, like you're still maybe a little nervous about with how it's going to go, but like you go in there like knowing I'm going to do this. I'm ready for it and I'm comfortable. And, you know, that just comes with preparation. You can't fake that.
The reporter asked, do you hate Balboa or do you hate Rocky?
But I pity the fool, and I will destroy any man who tries to take what I got.
That's a great line. Yes, I pity the fool, the famous line. But the next part is really the best part, I think, when he says, I pity the fool. And in fact, I want to hear the reporter's question again. Sorry, let's just go back.
Do you hate Balboa is the question.
No, I don't hate Balboa, but I pity the fool, and I will destroy any man who tries to take what I got.
I thought the reporter asked the question.
I think it's just, you know what the question is based on the answer.
Yeah,
so
I guess
in
so.
your mind, you fill it in.
Yeah,
I'm kind of ignorant to this because I never watched A-Team growing up, but he uses that line, I pity the fool, in A-Team, doesn't he? And so is this the first?
I don't think so.
No? Is this the only
I
time?
watched 18.
Because he's known for that line. Is it just because of this film?
That's a big film.
It is, but
Well,
I
I
think
know,
he
but
goes
still.
on to use it in appearance. That's now his persona that he takes
Yes,
on.
I watched the A-Team like religiously. Now, granted, I was a kid and I haven't watched it since I was young, and it was off the. I mean, I've seen snippets of stuff, of course, over the years on YouTube and stuff. But I watched it religiously as a kid. And I don't recall him saying that in that character. He played B.A. Baracus, which stood for Badass Baracus. That was his name.
Oh, that's what it stood for? I didn't know.
I know. Anyway, so if he did, I would be happy to see it. I just actually don't remember his character doing that.
He did have a short-lived cartoon series as well in the 80s, and I don't recall watching. I do feel like it was used a lot. So it might have been in the cartoons. It might have become his catchphrase later, even if it wasn't in the A-Team.
But this is the first iteration of it, I suppose.
Yes, this is the first time.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I would assume Sly wrote all of that. I can't imagine, no offense to Mr. T, being a new actor, new on the set, that he had much control over the dialogue. In fact, that's Sly's biggest strength is writing dialogue. That's what he likes to do.
Yeah.
He likes to write dialogue. So I suspect he wrote all that dialogue.
He's a good writer. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad actor or anything like that, but I think he's a better writer than he is an actor.
Depending on the project, yes. With the Rocky films, notwithstanding, seem to be hand in hand. This is his character. He lives and breathes the character. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you got to respect him for that. I also love Clubber's shit talking.
It's
like,
great.
That guy knows how to talk shit. I don't hate him. I just pity him. That's almost worse than hating someone.
It is.
Like, I would rather be hated than pitied.
Sure.
He knows how to like get under your skin, which I like.
Well, Luis thinks it's been used outside. Now, again, if it's been used in the shows, I'd be curious to see I am not doubtful. I mean, I don't doubt it that he did. I just don't remember Mr. T saying that outside the Rocky franchise in another show that wasn't a parody, if that makes sense. Maybe he guest spotted on something on the Muppet Show or something like that. Where I pity that Muppet or something like that. I don't know. But
he might have in the cartoon that
Rocky.
if anybody has seen the cartoon.
I watched it as a
You
kid.
did?
Oh, yeah. I ate the cereal and watched the cartoon at the same time. Are you kidding me?
Oh, that's great.
I'm an 80s kid, like you have to understand, in 85, the hype and the heyday of the 80s, 84 to 87, I was 10 to 11 years old. This was like
great.
heyday, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a great time. It was a great time.
You remember where you came from. You remember what it took to get you here. And you remember what he did to you last time, right?
First, he goes, remember where you came from. Is he saying from the hood, from Philly, in the streets? What's he referring to that from?
Probably It's really hard to analyze that.
Remember being hungry. Remember how tough it was. You came from nothing and that kind of a thing.
It's so vague that, yes, we could sit here forever. I know that. Every time I see this scene, we just talked about Sly's writing. This part's so vague. I don't know what Apollo's referring to. I don't know if Rocky knows. What are you talking about? You talking about like when I beat you in the ring, when I was being a bum and a leg breaker for Gazo? Like, what part of the from is he referring to? It's so vague.
The whole idea was bringing Rocky back to the beginning. Was bringing him back to the humble roots. Now he did go back to Apollo's beginning, but it was really a proxy for Rocky's beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying back to the hungry days.
Yeah. You came from here, and then he says, remember what it took to get here, to come from that place of a club fighter or whatever to all the way to being champion.
But then he says, remember what it took for you to get here. But yeah, we've kind of reset the clock. So you almost argue, remember when you had the Eye of the Tiger, and now remember what it took you to get the Eye of the Tiger again. I don't know. Yeah. It's just, it's an odd way of saying.
You got it back. I think he's just asking him to reflect on everything they've done and where he's been and just get perspective.
Sure. Yes. I mean, sure. I'm not saying that's not it. It's an odd way of saying, glad we're here now. Sure. But then he goes to say, remember what he did to you last time. I've always found that last part odd because, hey, remember what he did to you last time? Is he saying, I want you to be angry? Yes. I want you to have revenge in your heart. I want you to be a little bit pissed off, because that's not Rocky's style. That's what I found most interesting about this. Like the idea, I want you to be angry.
Apollo doesn't want Rocky to use his style. He wants Rocky to be like him. Like that's what he's been doing the whole time.
Sure.
Is trying to make Rocky into a proxy of himself. He's like the dad who wants their kid to live, who lives through their kid while playing sport and yells at the crowd and stuff. He's living vicariously through the son.
He does do that. We see it play out. He ain't so bad. My mother can hit harder than that. It worked. Apollo's doing a phenomenal job of hyping Rocky up for what he needs. We're not on the still anymore, but the shadow shot of them in the doorway. Did you see that replicated in another film? Wasn't it the same way with Rocky and Adonis? They had a very similar...
I'd have to go back.
Similar shot. I forget which movie. Was it Creed or Creed 2 at the beginning?
I bet you there was. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'll say this about Rocky and the Creed films in comparison to this here. Rocky is definitely a better trainer / manager than Apollo is. Rocky does a much better job of understanding the psychology of his fighter and relating to him than Apollo does. Apollo, I don't think his little speech there was that useful, to be honest. Like I think
it was, because it worked.
I think if that never happened, the result of the fight would have been the same.
Yeah.
Apollo's fine. He needed Apollo's training, which is the important part. But in terms of like motivation and all that stuff, I don't think Apollo's that helpful.
I fully agree that Apollo is taking on this role, be it unnaturally. He wants to be the star. I mean, he's the player, he's the athlete, he's the fighter. Whereas Rocky, I totally agree with you. His personality is tough, but sensitive and compassionate and empathetic. And so his aura is a better coach.
Yeah, he's never been the angry guy at a fight. Rocky's always kind of meek before a fight. He's just quiet. He's getting himself ready. He was real nervous the first fight against Apollo. He was almost kind of like, I hope Apollo doesn't show in the second fight. First fight, he was understandably messed up because of Mickey and everything else. He doesn't have really an MO of coming in hot on a fight. He almost has to take a few punches to get into it.
Since both men are brawlers, Stu, with the edge and power going to Clubber Lang, I would say that the odds are very long against Balboa regaining his title.
In a toe-to-toe brawl, if the two are standing in front of each other, throwing hard shots, which is exactly what happened in the first fight, you're standing toe-to-toe and just hitting each other with power shots. Logically, the more powerful fighter is going to win unless one has a way weaker chin than the other. Kleber doesn't really have a weak chin. Like, he took everything Rocky dished out in that first fight pretty well. If Rocky uses the same strategy he used in the first fight, he's going to lose.
I concur.
Okay.
It's your turn.
What's your prediction for the fight then?
Prediction?
Yes, prediction.
Pain.
So good. I love it.
Yeah, another classic moment. We don't have much more to say about that. Yeah.
Look at his
part
face.
Of the play. Yeah. Looking right at the camera. This is a clever little moment, too, because he's looking at the reporter's camera, but it's looking at the audience. You can get away with a fourth wall break here by looking at the audience, but he's looking at the news reporter camera. We're seeing the news reporter camera angle here.
He's the meanest, scariest opponent. I would not want to go in the ring with that.
Yeah, he's terrifying. Drago's terrifying in a different way.
Yeah.
his sheer size, the quietness about him kind of gives you a level of uncertainty, which is a certain fear. Clubber is mean. He's like, I'm going to hurt you. You know, we could back it up. So, yeah, I would be pretty afraid of fighting him.
Lang is a brawler who likes to hurt a man to the body.
And, you know, Balboa may never have psychologically recovered from that vicious knockout that Clubber laid on him.
One's a terrible point. One's a great point. Clubber's a man that likes to hurt a man to the body. I think you see one, maybe two body shots in both fights. And then all the previous fight scenes during the initial montage, when you see Clubber knocking guys out, you never see him hit someone to the body. Like, who wrote that? Is that you, Sly? Sorry. You're a good writer, but that line, not good. But the psychological recovery part, they don't know what Rocky went through in his psychological recovery. If Rocky decided to just train himself or something like that, he wouldn't have psychologically recovered. So I think that's a fair point for them to make.
It's time.
So that was used, of course, throughout the Rocky films. Mickey says to the Rocky, it's time, kid. And then Paul uses it for Rocky, it's time. And then Rocky uses it for Adonis in the first film, it's time, kid.
Good point.
Here.
He does look very relaxed, though.
That's the whole idea. He's just chilling.
I want you to wear these.
Why didn't you give those to me before I put my other shorts on, Apollo?
Yeah, before I got dressed and ready.
These are, the colors that you wore in our first fight together. I can wear your colors.
Just wear them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks, Pop.
You just make sure you wash them before you bring them back, all right?
We'll do.
Oh, I love it so much, but so many problems.
Okay, what's your problem with that?
Well, two things. One, they would have had to have been customized. Apollo's shorts would not fit Rocky. They are not the same size of clothes. And two, as I mentioned, when this happens in Creed, I'm ready to go. And now I got to put new, different clothes on that I'm not comfortable in. Like, I'm going to be all out of sorts. I know they're doing it for the movie's sake, but you just said it's time. And now I have to go change clothes real quick. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Most guys are just kind of whatever. Like, maybe if you're really attached to your colors, maybe. But Rocky specifically is pretty chill about that kind of stuff. I do agree about the fit, though. It wouldn't fit. I did think about that. We all know Apollo's trying to live through Rocky here, but now he's like making him wear wear his clothes.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to go out on a float and pretend to be George Washington too? and actually, I believe the music, the Marine Corps anthem, is the music that's played when Rocky comes out, and I believe that's the same music that Apollo had during the first fight when he came out. He's really trying to make it as similar as possible to him coming in.
If it wasn't for Apollo, I'm sure you guys often do disagree. I don't know why I'm always on that note. Fine, that's fine. I'm the voice of dissension, I guess. Okay. If it wasn't for Apollo saying I want those back, could one argue that he's giving Rocky a new set of trunks that has his colors, not necessarily the ones he wore when he fought Rocky? Notice throughout the films that the shorts that Tommy got, that the shorts that Adonis got, they're not the same trunks. They're all different, but they have the same color scheme.
Was the Tommy one different?
I'm 90% sure. I'd have to go back, but I feel like when I look at that film, when we look at the shorts, they don't seem like the same. We'd have to.
Oh my god!
I guess it's very easy to go.
Did you say I'm all stressed?
I'm stressed because he gave Tommy those shorts, and if those were Apollo's shorts, I doubt Tommy gave them back.
We're already repeating ourselves from the first podcast, but anyways, that being said, I'm just saying. But Apollo says here, that's the great joke. That's the great line. Make sure you wash them before you get, because I'm going to own these again. These are going to be mine again. I'm not a boxing nerd outside these films, so I don't know. Do colors mean strictly this is what I wore, or this is my theme? These are my colors.
I don't know.
In this particular instance, I think it's very clear that they were the physical shorts that Apollo wore.
So we have Mr. John Rivoli in our Instagram chat, and he is a pretty big Rocky nerd himself, right? He says that all the flag shorts were different in the films.
Yes, in reality.
In reality, they're not the same short. The film used different shorts.
Again, so that's why the line, if it didn't exist, I want you to wash them before you get, or you can just argue Paul's given him fresh pair of shorts, but he wants them back anyways.
No. Who would give him a second pair of shorts and then ask for them back?
No. It's very clear. I don't think anybody thinks that this is a second set of shorts.
Ryan, I honestly think you're trolling us at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, slow down. All I'm saying is if he didn't use the line, wash them, that line alone, I know he did, but
I'm so sorry.
I know you guys have already proven your point. I'm just saying the physical evidence that we see as a viewer is all the shorts are different. So it's very confusing. Like, I understand we could just say, well, the costume department got it wrong. Okay, well, the costume department got it wrong. However, ... Other than that one line, yes, it's frustrating as a viewer. One thing about the films, it is frustrating. We always have to kind of like retcon and forgive so many different mistakes where it's almost like, I don't know if it's the same shorts.
The people Apollo hired to trash talk Rocky and Rocky 2 secretly got Rocky's measurements to fit him for those shorts.
Yes. Now, Ryan, I understand what you're saying.
I know. I'm the same way. I get it. That's what makes it fun and sentimental. They wore those their first fight. Rocky gets to wear them. He wears them again when he fights Drago. He gives them to Tommy Morrison and then Tommy loses them or whatever. We don't know if he gets them back. I understand. Then Adonis wears the same colors when he fights. I get it.
But it is clear in Creed, it's very clearly.
Well, it's Johnson on one side and Creed on the other.
Like they're just made to symbolize. They're not actually the same shorts. I think we had that discussion. And from the costume department, I don't really think they made mistakes. I think it's clear that they're similar and they might not be. I mean, what's different about them?
It's from like 1976. I doubt they have those shorts laying around. Like if they're going to do that for the movie, they have to come up with new shorts. And those new shorts will necessarily not look exactly the same as the old ones. They would be different material or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Even the ones Tommy wears, they're the same style. Okay,
so are you guys done? Okay, so I was just being the devil's advocate a little bit, saying if that line about the washing wasn't said, we really would have a fun discussion. That's all I was trying. I was just speculating because that's all I was doing there. However, because John is friends with Sly, I kid you not, he just texted Sly. And we have an answer from Sly. If you want to hear it, this is live on the air. Yeah, I told you, John Rivoli's friends with Sly, and he's watching our show right now on Instagram. So John just texts Sly. He goes, "Hey, I just texted the boss, and he said that those were Apollo's actual shorts he was loaning to Rocky." So there you go.
I'm going to give Ryan credit because Ryan could have easily just said that he could have made this up and said that, like, yeah, Sly confirmed that they were different shorts, and we would not be the wiser.
Oh, Ryan would never do that.
Ryan stood up and Ryan said the truth.
I was just making the argument, had that line not been, then that would be even a more valuable text from the boss, Mr. Stallone, that they were the same shirt. Now, John, can you ask Sly? Ask Sly whose shorts were given to Tommy? That's the question. We need to know whose shorts. This is the biggest mystery. Did Tommy the Machine Gun Morrison return those trunks to Rocky? And if so, whose trunks were they?
They're lost. Oh. That's awesome, though. Thank you, John, for asking Sly, and that makes me so excited that he answered.
John's the best.
Almost like he's part of the show right now. It's basically like we have Sly on right here. 2 texts away. There's like the 8 degrees of separation or whatever. There's like 2.
We'll have John come on every show, but Sly on speed dial. We have a proxy guest host. Okay, no, John, you're amazing. I really want to know, did Tommy receive the same? Basically, did Tommy receive the trunks that Rocky's receiving now? And then if he did Rocky ever get those trunks back, or did Tommy die with those trunks? All right.
Oh my God. And John, I wanted to let you know, I have your butt kiss drawing. I love it. I have that.
Oh, yeah.
Home. I ordered that last year sometime. I love it.
Yeah. John's the best. He's great. Okay. So that being said, we're going to continue.
After this, you owe me a favor.
Ooh.
What favor?
So it's at this point that Rocky thinks it's something gay. That's what I will say. It's at this point he's giving Rocky clothes. He's half naked.
He's grooming Rocky right there through this whole process.
Well, you saw how oiled and greased up they are. Why are they so greased up in that private fight?
Well, you got to be greased, man, or else you'll get caught.
Like, don't they put Vaseline on him or something?
Yeah, you saw Vaseline on Clubber's face during that interview.
No, but I think their secret fight at the end, there was Vaseline everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. Toe-to-toe, Lang is utterly devastating, and he's much too strong.
This is like the 5th time they've said something. Yes, they're really building it up.
It's for the audience. We're in the theater. It's a reminder to the audience that even though we know that there's no way Rocky's going to lose 2 fights in the film, it's still to give you a little bit of that stress that this is a big fight, guys. Don't forget, audience, this is the guy that knocked him out. But we're all like, no, not with the training he's received. There's no way he's losing. But it's just a way to add a little bit of stress to the audience.
Analysts would say stuff like that, though. That's not outside the realm of what would actually happen. I could see announcers and analysts saying that. Often, though, it's not uncommon to have media and people come visit the fighters' training camp, and you don't see any evidence of that in basically any of the Rocky films. It doesn't really happen in this series. Have they had someone from the media or had some analysts come visit Rocky's camp and they saw like, oh, Rocky's doing all this speed work and he's practicing dodging? That would have entered into this conversation. That like, oh, we've been seeing Rocky train. He's training with Apollo. He's doing all this stuff like Apollo would. If he uses this, do you think he would win? Like, it'd be a much more interesting discussion. But they seem to be totally in the dark about Rocky's training. They kind of are almost forced to assume that Rocky's going to fight the same way he always does. Like, why wouldn't he? They've seen him fight all these fights. He fights the same way every time. Unless you know something that the public doesn't know, you're going to assume that.
Agreed.
All right, listen, I just want to tell you that I'm proud of you. It takes a hell of a man to change, and you did it. You're going to prove it to him tonight, right?
Right. You did good, Apollo.
Thanks, Apollo.
Okay, let's do Apollo.
There you go. There's
Paulie.
Oh, they're friends now. It didn't
right
take
before the door opens, right? In Rocky 4, he has that. They're like, if I had to step out, become someone, I'd want to be you. And then he took it back, but still.
And he knows he doesn't want to be Apollo. If I could slip it to somebody else's skin. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe not you.
Yeah.
No, but it's so cute. I think it's adorable. They're friends now, you guys.
Thank you, Kyle. I got to laugh out of Kyle. I mean, if I make Kyle laugh and Katie shake her head, then I know I told you a joke.
I chuckled.
No, you have a good sense of humor, Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Except for when he thinks we're stomping all over him. Ryan, we're just giving you a hard time. We love you.
I know you do. I do want to say it's interesting how Apollo says here, it's kind of subtle, but Apollo says, it's cool to see that you changed, Rocky. And then Rocky in the next movie, you can't change who you are, Adrian. Come on, Rocky, which one is it? He changes for Apollo, but he doesn't change for Adrian.
And I'm going to go right back to fighting the way I did before in the next film. Right. And the film after that. And the film after that.
I just changed for you, Apollo. That's it.
Yeah, just this one time. But all these things I learned from you, I'm going to discard them. It's like this never happened.
And here comes Rocky, and here comes Apollo, the two former champions.
Look at that United States Marine Corps color guard there.
Yeah, you're right, Kyle.
Magnificent.
Tremendous. Say, take a look at Rocky. Look at the tenseness in his face, the tautness of that body.
The tautness of that body. Have you ever heard any commentator say the tautness of someone's body? I know he looks great, but he hasn't even disrobed yet. That's just funny.
You can't see his body yet. It's his face. I would like to point out, I'm very excited to see the disrobing, but Apollo
get to the disrobing.
Apollo looks so good in that shirt.
Apollo's physique in this film is incredible. Like, that's why we saw him shirtless for the training montage, because we said, of course, he has to tell Stallone, hey, look, man, I worked out for this film. You got to have me shirtless.
Yes. He looks great.
Rocky looks serious. He's all business, of course, and both fighters come in this way. They both come in serious for sure.
Boy, does he look serious right now.
That he certainly does. And Stu, the word is that this is Rocky's last fight, win, lose, or draw.
Oh, is this his last fight, win, lose, or draw? There's no Rocky 4? Well, that's too bad. Oh, well.
Yeah. He's
and there he is, the Italian stallion, Rocky Balboa, climbing into the ring. Boy, he looks incredibly trim, doesn't he? I'd say he's got to be about 20 pounds lighter.
Dropped 20 pounds since the first fight, and of course we know behind the scenes
he has
at 100. Well, I know, not in real life, but
even according to this film.
Oh,
like they're going to do the weigh-in in this film, and he's like 191 pounds or something. Well, he drops about 10 pounds.
Well, because he wouldn't be a heavyweight if he actually lost 20 pounds.
But they don't know that, so they're just saying from the look of him, it seems like he dropped.
Yeah,
like they're
just slimmed right down.
Yeah.
But we know the stories, of course, of Sly of standing on his head, they have blood to his head, and like drinking 5 cups of coffee every hour or whatever it was, no food or whatever he ate.
Well,
losing body fat.
Has anyone had a lower, I'm sure there has, but it's like a crazy low body fat percentage.
Balboa, the Iron Man from Philadelphia, and this crowd is certainly with him tonight. Listen.
Balboa doesn't really have any boxing skills. I've never seen a fight at all with as much raw determination.
Again, I love Sly writes these dialogues.
Yeah.
Rocky has no boxing skill. Yeah, he's the brawler. He can take hits. He's got the big punch. That is his style. He has
skills now. They don't know it though.
Now he does.
Yeah.
They'll see him dance in the ring very shortly. Not this episode. If you're coming in late, folks, we're going to do the rest of the fight next episode.
Here comes the champion now, Clubber Lang. Listen to this crowd.
Take a look at those eyes. I've never seen a guy with such sullen eyes. He is tough. Boy,
Okay.
I know, it's such a great scene.
I love it. That guy sounds like such a Southern good old boy too. Come on, go back where you came from.
You know what this reminds me? It reminds me of how Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald. This is what this reminds me of.
Mhm.
Okay. Lee Harvey Oswald's coming with the press and the police at the same time. And Jack Ruby just comes out and shoots a boom boom in the stomach. Right. And that's what this part feels like. And of course, this guy is just being racist. This is a racist cop, which is odd because did he feel the same way about Apollo? Is that what we're led to believe? Because this is in New York. This is neutral ground. So what's he referring to? Go back to Chicago?
Well, he probably meant both. Stereotyping Southerners a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm not saying all, but like that's the stereotype of a Southerner. I never caught that's what he said, literally until just now. I thought it was just a photographer getting in his face. I never heard what he said before. Well, I would have pushed him too, probably, if I was Clubber.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the Nike. I also never noticed that Clubber's team now has like the Nike. What do you call those coats that were very 80s?
Oh,
what do you call that style of coat?
We call them jackets, but they're sport jackets or something. I know what you're talking about.
Material. It's like that shiny kind of material.
It's shiny. Yeah, it's kind of shiny and slick and smooth feeling.
There's 6 in the entourage that I can count right now.
Yeah.
There's more to come. Like this is only just a fraction of his entourage.
Well, at least the military band still played for Clubber. That would have been horrible had he stopped for him.
Imagine if they played that Frank Sinatra song just to troll him. Remember in Rocky Balboa, like the ant
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, he even belted a spectator on the way in. Did you see that? Look at that man.
Boy, awesome.
Awesome.
Man, he's tough. Look at that.
Clubber Lang, the heavyweight champion of the world.
I just love those notes. I don't know why they're so funny this episode. Really get into their own character. Oh, thanks. Louise agrees with my Jack Ruby vibe. John Rivley, he wanted to say that he always found it interesting how dark the ring was in this fight. There's almost no lights.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, it's like a darker fight. It's more gloomy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Apollo's telling Rocky to keep it loose, keep it loose.
Hey, fool, you ready for another beating? You should have never came back.
Mr. T, it's you should have never have come back. Sorry.
Come on, Clubber. Let's get the grammar going on.
I pity the fool who doesn't know grammar.
So Rocky would have initially wore yellow trunks. If you noticed here, Apollo and all the other guys are not dressed in those colors. They're dressed in red colors, which is Apollo's entourage always wore those colors.
The very first Rocky fight, like Rocky 1, he wore these colors. And his team they were pink, but they were supposed to be
pink.
Red. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a callback to, I think this is the idea. This is both Rocky and Apollo's fight.
But the very first fight, Rocky hadn't got the yellow persona yet.
Right.
Like he wore those yellow colors in the second fight, and then that was his thing going forward. And his corner wore that. That was their uniform. But now that Apollo's in, they're wearing Apollo's colors. Rocky's wearing Apollo's shorts. Like Apollo is just taking over everything here. The old Rocky, everything about it is being like stamped out, or at least trying to be stamped out.
It's a co-fight.
Yeah.
Let's just be cool.
Hey, boy. Hey, boy.
I was just counting that lineup of people in the entourage. We could do that later, though.
All right. So, of course, this is the big insult. We've talked about this before. You got Clubber calling Apollo boy, which is a huge insult.
In that tone, too.
Well, thank God he's also black, because that would have been rough.
Yeah. Even Rocky's like, oh, I'm not stopping this fight.
Yeah, I'm staying out of this. This is not my thing right here.
After I crucify him, you next.
Just stay out of my face, chump.
Don't turn your back on me, second.
We got a brawl before the bell. Apollo and Clubber now fighting each other. This thing is ready to explode. The fight about to officially begin, but these guys will start right up.
How many guys are there?
There's like
They're
8
everywhere.
or 9.
They're Clubber trucker hats.
The ring is half full of clever guys.
This would have been an amazing fight to be at with all this extra drama.
This would have been great for television, like on the news, or when they show the highlights of this fight. This little brawl at the beginning would have been a highlight reel to see this. This, like legit to see this kind of mini brawl breakout. That's fantastic television for the sports updates. That's a big moment here, because don't forget, right before this, Apollo told Rocky, "Don't look at him, just play it cool." And of course, here we go. How that played.
I'm gonna get you. Let him go. thought you said be cool. That was cool. I'm the champ. I'm the champ. I'll beat you like I did last time.
That was cool. I love that. Yeah,
I do too.
I love Carl's acting. Is great. I mean, they're all doing a great job here. I love how I thought he said to be cool. He goes, that was cool. Could you imagine if I really wanted to do I wanted to do this guy? Like, he's lucky.
That's true. It was cool. Yeah.
He wanted to lay him out. The fact that he didn't punch him took a lot of coolness on Apollo's part. He's nothing but if not a fighter, and he was insulted, and pushed behind. To be pushed from behind is very insulting.
It was a big push too, like he meant business. Why does Paulie have a different style of shirt than Tony and Apollo? It's still red, but it doesn't have the white collar and sleeves.
He has to be a little bit dressed down compared to these other two.
Okay.
Also, maybe that's like Apollo's subtle way of telling Paulie he doesn't really belong there.
Maybe.
Like he's othered right now. Like, you don't have the shirt. Like we have the official shirt. You have some bullshit polo shirt from Old Navy.
Yeah. Was Old Navy in existence? The Gap was, but I don't know.
Back then, I'm sure Old Navy was. I'm sure.
I'm here. And boxing fans around the world. Welcome to Madison Square Garden. And tonight's heavyweight championship of the world.
It's a clever sign.
The challenger, weighing 191 pounds, from the fighting city of Philadelphia, the former heavyweight champion of the world, the Italian stallion, Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, I love his little dance he does out like that. I think it's the only time in all these films he does that kind of dance. He didn't do it in Rocky IV, certainly. He didn't do it in Rocky Balboa. It's not a cocky dance, but it's like a dance. He comes out and dances on the feet and put his arms above his head. He's never done that in any film since or before. It was kind of a unique moment here.
He knows how to dance now.
He's giving a sneak peek to people that he can move on his feet a little bit. And Adrian is just this fight. She's loving this fight. She is totally behind this fight.
A couple things about that little sequence. I'm giddy over this because Rocky's so hot. Also, 191 pounds. Is that the very minimum for a heavyweight at this time, Kyle?
I don't know.
Sounds like
it's below the limit now. He wouldn't qualify as a heavyweight now under that weight.
Also, the announcer, I'm constantly, do you guys do this whenever you say Rocky Balboa? I say it like the announcer, Rocky Balboa.
And it feels right having this announcer. Like, this is the announcer in the fight where Rocky won the championship the first time. Before they had that old guy, it was like Bob Barker almost, he looked like. It just felt weird. The ref was different. Everything was just wrong about the first fight. Now everything feels right. Like, you have the music from the first fight. Rocky's in the right place. He has the old trunks on. You have the familiar announcer. Lou Filippo's in the ring, so you know the fight's going to be intense because he's not going to stop shit. Like, you might as well not be there.
You might as well not be there.
Yeah, I love it.
He is so slimmed down. He looks like a middleweight.
Out of the blue corner, weighing 237 pounds, the hard-punching battler from Chicago, the reigning heavyweight champion of the world, Clubber Lang.
46-pound difference. That's gigantic. And I want to point out, for that time, that's massive for a heavyweight.
237.
Yeah. George Foreman, who is a big heavyweight, when he was fighting when he was young, like in the 70s, he was like 220 pounds about. And he was big. He was a big guy, like Ron Lyle, George Foreman. Those guys were big. And they were in the 220s, maybe high teens. And then when George Foreman came out of retirement, he was about 260, I think. 250, 260. So he was kind of fat, right? Like, he always got criticized for being big. George Foreman, when he was fat, was kind of like the same weight Clubber is now, except Clubber's not fat. That's pretty heavy.
It is. They always up the opponent's weight. I doubt Clubber actually weighs 237 in the same way that I don't think Dolph Lundgren actually weighed like 267 in Rocky IV, and Hulk Hogan did not weigh 390 pounds. They increased the weight to make it seem more.
Sure. Yeah, Apollo, according to the last fight, was like 220, which I'd say he's probably about 220. He's pretty tall, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the first fight, he was 210, which is definitely believable. Clubber's a big boy.
He's thick.
Inconceivable that you'd have fighting at a 47 or 46 pound weight difference.
Boys, let's go. We went over the rules yesterday. I'm just going to repeat a few of them. Let's watch the low blows and the rabbit punches. In case of a knockdown, you go to the corner I tell you to, and you stay there until I tell you to come out. Is that understood? Any questions? Okay, let's go back to your corner now. Let's go.
I'll bust you out.
Go for it.
There you go.
He's making eye contact this time. In the first fight, he was like avoiding eye contact. You notice he still has the scar below his left eye.
Oh, good call.
Cover cut him there. Like it's still existent, but it's kind of healed, and it makes him look a little more badass having that. He's been through some shit. He still has it. It kind of reminds the audience that he's been beat up. He's like toughened up. He's like better for it now.
So in some ways, they're really good with the continuity.
Yeah. Whoever did makeup was on point then.
Luis says Mr. T was legitimately around 225 pounds.
Yeah.
Stallone was reportedly 155. So like, yeah, that's a good point.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty, that's about like 70 pounds. Yeah, 70
It
pounds
looks
different.
it. I mean, I was going to ask you guys all if you've seen the meme of that scene where Clubber and Rocky, it's just a close up of their faces looking at each other and their noses. And then that, and then the second photo is a hand there. So it looks like they're about to kiss.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I
changes
wish my
everything
wife would
from
look at me the way Rocky looks in Clubber.
Yeah. No, that's fun. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'm glad we decided. There's no way. We're going to do the fight plus the secret fight at the end. So there's no way that we can do more. So that was great discussions, of course. Thanks for not ganging up on me harshly. I will say this, though. I'm tempted. I don't think John's listening anymore, but I will message him after because I don't ask a lot of favors of John. He does that on his own. It was very kind of him to even text Sly. I can't believe he did that. I do want to know. Yeah, and I'll tell the truth of what Sly said. There'll be two it's gonna be three answers because I've done this with Sly a couple times. Remember with the zoo thing? He forgot apparently that he mentioned the zoo comment about Adrian. Even though, when those guys are harassing Rocky, I felt like the timeline was too quick. That they were on Apollo's payroll. We get through that, and you guys are thinking, no, that was just a natural reaction. That the smear campaign worked, and they were naturally reacting that way to Rocky because of the smear campaign that was from the newspaper. Is that right?
Yeah.
Essentially. Okay. Because that's the only thing that we saw was the newspaper ad. We didn't see any other thing on TV. They didn't have the internet back then. There's no tweets. Okay. So I'm going to ask John, if you could ask Rocky, if you could ask Sly that one question, like, were those guys, specifically the guys, you're super the good man, were they doing that because they saw that picture in the paper or because Apollo sent some people essentially saying, hey, can you rattle this cage a little bit and go after him a little bit? So you guys were probably right, but my brain went there all these years. It naturally went there.
This is like the splinter in Ryan's hand that he has to pull out.
Yeah, a little bit. I've had a few of these things for the Rocky series. I've had a few of these. The real questions that fans never ask Sly, and these are the questions I want to know. Well, I got the zoo one answered. I'm really happy about that one.
That's one I think everybody is like, what the heck?
He's never been asked.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That surprises me so much because it's like a legit question.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like his sense of humor. Like I thought it was like kind of a little nod to the first film, like a joke,
maybe.
And I thought it was funny. Like I kind of gave him credit for
that. Was what we wanted to know. What was the reason? We thought it was intentional, so we were wondering what the reason was. What was Rocky's thinking? Was he owning that insult, or did he forget? And Sly's response was neither. He forgot. Sly forgot that he wrote that line that insulted the first film. That's the funny thing. Anyway,
I almost am like, you shouldn't waste your question on that one, but you can do whatever you want.
I got 3 questions with Sly. That's it. Okay, what's your
one I think that has come up on the show a few times is the cufflink. Are we to assume that Apollo got the other one from?
Like what he says, they gave to some bum. Was that bum Apollo or somebody from Apollo's camp? Yeah. Okay.
Like
Tony. Well, you know it's not Apollo because Apollo would be too young.
Yeah, like Tony or something.
Or like Apollo's dad or something. Yeah. Or like some trainer that later gave it to Apollo. You know what I mean?
I'm going with Tony.
Well, he said he gave it to some bum. And I think the idea of that was, remember Mickey calls him that bum. Yeah, you're a bum.
Mickey calls everyone a bum.
I know, but I mean,
just means a random guy. I don't think it's actually casting judgment.
So it was a random guy. How did Apollo end up with it? Okay,
sheer coincidence, essentially.
Yeah, that's funny. Those are good questions. I don't know if I'm going to bug John with anything. Okay,
give it some time. You got to spread those out.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Anyways, guys, thanks for everyone who joined us. Yes, next episode will be the final episode of Rocky 3. If you have any last comments or questions or queries or complaints about our coverage of Rocky 3, now's the time to let us know. We'll read them out and discuss them on the next episode. If not, that's fine. We'll just end that next episode. And then the episode after that, we're going to roll it right into Rocky 4. And again, we are going to go back to trivia. Once I get back to Canada, we'll just do Rocky 3 until we catch up. There'll be enough episodes that there's less questions than episodes. So we'll get those done. So do Rocky 3 and 4 during the Rocky 4 coverage. Okay. This episode is over.
I didn't hear no bell.
I just want to